It's definitely been a while, but it feels so good to be back. Word to Eminem. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Happy Monday. I hope you guys have had a phenomenal week. I hope your weekend's been good. Welcome to yet another episode of Monday Evening Quarterback. My name is Christian Simpson. I am the creator, I'm the founder, I'm the NFL and college football analyst of a brand that I started on September 2010, called The Daily Blitz, where we specialize in all things football 24/7, 365. I'm also a blogger, I'm also a radio contributor, and just like many of you who follow the sport, I'm a fan. Love this game with everything in me and have since I was 6 years old. It's definitely been a while, as I mentioned, and a lot has happened since I've been on. 3 rounds of the NFL playoffs have taken place. The most important round is set to begin next week. The most important game, that is, the Super Bowl. We do have a Super Bowl, Super Bowl 60, NFC champion, Seattle Seahawks, AFC champion, New England Patriots. Cannot wait to discuss this with you guys. If you've been following along from the get-go, thank you as always. And if this is your first time tuning in, hello, thank you for tuning in. If you were referred to me, thank you for taking a referral. Thank you to whoever referred you to me. It's more than appreciated. And if you want to continue to follow along after, log on to the site and become a subscriber today, which is thedailyblitz.blog, and like, share, and subscribe to the podcast, Monday Evening Quarterback, on YouTube. Got some more big things coming for MEQ. But yeah, like I said, a lot has happened since the last time I've been on. Many head coaches have been relieved of their duties. One coach stepped down, and I think the writing was on the wall for that. A national champion was crowned in college football, and now 2 teams remain in the NFL. And I want to start with the coaching carousel. I think the writing was on the wall these last couple of years, but Mike Tomlin did step down and resign as the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I remember when the news broke, my mom told me, I saw the Steelers fire Tomlin, and I'm so glad she said that, because I was able to just tell her, the Steelers don't fire head coaches. Since 1970, before they recently just hired Mike McCarthy, the Steelers have only had 3 coaches. Chuck Noll, Hall of Famer; Bill Cowher, Hall of Famer; Mike Tomlin, who's going to be a Hall of Famer. 19 years, no losing seasons. The front office really hasn't done the Steelers. They really haven't done any favors for the Steelers, put it to you like that, because they never really had a plan post Ben Roethlisberger, if we're being honest. They are still trying to kind of like find who they are. I say give Will Howard a shot. Or if you bring Aaron Rodgers back for another year, why not? He's at the end of his career. He didn't look bad this year, but this just isn't the same Steelers team that I've been accustomed to seeing. The Steelers team that will run the football right up the middle until you could stop it, play stingy defense. And outside of TJ Watt, their defense was horrible this year. Look, whatever Mike Tomlin wants to do, I'll be supportive of it. I would love to see him coach again, especially at the college level, just to see him kind of bring that intensity and that discipline. But I kind of see him going down the Sean Payton route, maybe doing TV for a couple of years and then just waiting for the best opportunity to fall into your lap. So whatever he decides to do, I wish him the best in that future endeavor. John Harbaugh got fired from the Baltimore Ravens after 18 seasons. Yeah, Mike Tomlin and John Harbaugh are pretty intertwined with one another. Mike got that job in Pittsburgh in 2007, And John took the job with Baltimore in 2008, and 12 playoff appearances, did win a Super Bowl. Lamar won 2 MVPs under John. Wouldn't have fired him, because who do you find that's better than him? Like, John Harbaugh is a leader of men. He is a guy that brings structure to the locker room. This is a guy that knows how to coach big names, and he's done that. He coached Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, Terrell Suggs, most recently Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. But he always preaches that, no matter the name or what's on the back of the jersey or how much money you're making, no one man is bigger than the team. And when he got fired, I remember telling David On Point on a prime that he'll have a job by the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. And the New York Giants won the John Harbaugh sweepstakes. This was a move they had to make. They needed an experienced coach. No disrespect to anybody who's looking to get their first start, but they needed someone to bring structure, a little bit of intensity, some discipline. Things that the Giants have lacked for the last decade. And they finally got it now. But it all depends on who he hires as coordinators, what they do in free agency, what they do in the NFL draft, because I'm not ready to move them up in the NFC East. But I think that division will be a lot more interesting this upcoming season. The Steelers replaced Mike Tomlin with Mike McCarthy, which isn't a bad move. He's a Super Bowl winning coach. He's an experienced guy. I think he's a hometown kid, if I'm not mistaken. The Ravens replaced John Harbaugh with Jesse Minter, and he's a Harbaugh disciple. He coached under John in Baltimore for a couple of years, I believe as their defensive coordinator. Then he follows Jim. He goes to Michigan and becomes the Michigan defensive coordinator. He was the DC of that Michigan team that won the national championship a couple years ago. And then he follows Jim to LA and runs the Chargers defense. And look at how good that LA defense was this year. I like this move for the Ravens because, the Ravens defense has really struggled these last couple of years, especially this year. They were soft. Teams were running the ball right through them, and that's so uncommon. Like, the Baltimore offense is great. That's not going to be a problem. You got a 2-time winning MVP in Lamar Jackson, and you have a former offensive player of the year in Derrick Henry. So, if Baltimore can just kind of tighten some things up and stay healthy, they're right back in the grand scheme of things. The Dolphins did fire Mike McDaniel, and they hired Jeff Hafley as their new head coach. See how that pans out, because the Dolphins have a lot of work and a lot of soul searching to do, I feel. Yesterday, I read that the Las Vegas Raiders were going to hire the Seattle Seahawks offensive coordinator, Clint Kubiak. The Las Vegas Raiders, we're going to hire Clint Kubiak to be their next head coach. And that's a good move. You're walking into a situation. You got the number 1 overall pick. We all know that's going to be in Fernando Mendoza. You have Ashton Genty. Fix up that offensive line. You have Michael Mayer. You have Brock Bowers. Get some wide receivers. Fix up that defense. See what you do with Max Crosby. I think he's going to be traded. I think he will become a Chicago Bear. And go from there. The Arizona Cardinals hired Mike LaFleur as their new head coach. And the Buffalo Bills fired Sean McDermott. Can't say I'm surprised, but the way they threw him under the bus just shows me a lack of poor management. They're not ran right. I was thinking they go after a guy like a Clint Kubiak. Just someone fresh, but they decided to stay in-house, and they hired Joe Brady. And, look, I have been calling for Joe Brady to be a head coach these last couple of years. Saw what he did with the LSU Tigers with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson in 2019. Yeah, that team was a real life video game. um, and he has brought more balance to the Buffalo Bills offense, because how many years have I called for Buffalo to run the football? My thing with the Bills is when they have James Cook and they're feeding him for most of the game, they seem to get away from him, and they want Josh Allen to be that Mariano Rivera type of guy, the guy that's going to come in, close out, and go from there. But nah, this offense is better, and I say it all the time, when they let James cook. And there were times when James wasn't even on the field in crucial moments of the game. So to me, I think this is a downgrade for the Buffalo Bills. I think this gives the New England Patriots a division again next year. The only way the Bills win that division next season is if they get a true number one wide receiver. No disrespect, guys like Khalil Shakir and Curtis Samuel and Keon Coleman, they just don't scare me as a former defender. No, he was a little bit of a diva, but Stephon Diggs was a guy you had to account for, and you had to know where he was on the field at all times. Buffalo will still make the playoffs, but I don't think this puts them over the hump in the AFC. And that's just an honest opinion. The Browns fired Kevin Stefanski. Kevin gets a job with the Atlanta Falcons, and the Browns hired Todd Monken. That's another move I like, because I think he can get the best out of Shedeur Sanders. Cleveland just has to add pieces. What do they do with Myles Garrett this year? He's the best player in our league right now. What are they going to do with him? But yeah, I think all the head coaching vacancies have been full now. I think there were 10 of them, if I'm not mistaken, which is crazy. But yeah, so I covered the coaching carousel. Like I mentioned, we did crown a champion in college football. What a game it was. Miami Hurricanes, Indiana Hoosiers, pretty much a home game for the Miami Hurricanes. The game was where they play their home games, Hard Rock Stadium in Miami. I knew Miami was going to play them tough, but, Indiana was the best team in college football all year long, with the best player in the country, in Fernando Mendoza. And I wouldn't disagree with you if you said Curt Cignetti was the best coach in the country. I mean, what he's done and how he's turned around that program. I mean, winning just seems to follow this guy. He's older, and sometimes that's what you need, just a guy that's been there and done that. And, this team has really bought in to his philosophy. Indiana won their first national championship in university history, and this was the third consecutive year another team from the Big Ten won the national championship. Michigan won it during the 2023-24 season. Ohio State won it the 24-25 season. And this year it was the Indiana Hoosiers. What a season for them. The first 16-0 team in the history of college football. And I can't wait to see what they do next year. Yeah, they are going to lose Fernando Mendoza. He did declare himself eligible for the NFL draft. And also, as I mentioned, while I had been on my little hiatus, 3 rounds of the NFL playoffs took place, and the wild card round did not disappoint. Rams won that thriller against the Carolina Panthers. The Bears did it again. Hence the reason why they earned the nickname the Cardiac Bears. They came back and beat the Green Bay Packers. Then that Sunday, the Bills just got by the Jacksonville Jaguars. The 49ers went into Philly and punched the Eagles in the mouth. And to me, that was just a microcosm of the Eagles season all year long. Just could never really find the consistency or offensively. Couldn't get Saquon going. Passing game was really a struggle. But To me, the more disappointing thing was A.J. Brown complains about getting the ball, and when Jalen Hurts gets him the ball, he drops it. It doesn't finish out plays. Then the Patriots did it with defense, sacking Justin Herbert 6 times, won that game 16-3, and then to round out the wild card round, the Houston Texans just absolutely dominated the Pittsburgh Steelers, which would be Mike Tomlin's final game as the Steelers head coach. The divisional round started in Denver. Buffalo going to Denver to play the Broncos, who were the top seed in the AFC. What a game that was. But you're not going to win football games turning the ball over as many times as they did. And Buffalo turned the ball over 5 times. Now, that catch by Brandon Cooks is questionable. I want to know what you guys think. Was that a catch? Put it in the comments of this episode when I reveal it to you. Denver didn't look all the greatest either, but they just made one more play when it mattered. And unfortunately, this was the game when Bo Nix broke his ankle. But Denver escaped with a 3-point victory, 33-30, and this ended up being the final game of the Sean McDermott tenure in Orchard Park, because he was fired 2 days later. The Seahawks just absolutely dominated the San Francisco 49ers. And it wasn't close. They got off to a fast start and then just kept their foot on the gas the remainder of the game. The Sunday game, Patriots hosted the Houston Texans. Again, did it with defense, intercepting C.J. Stroud 4 times. Dominated that game 28-16. And then the one I was really looking forward to, that entire divisional round. The Rams, the Bears, frigid Chicago. Having lived out there, I know how cold it can get. And I think the temperature was 15 to 16 degrees at kickoff. And everybody kept saying the Rams didn't stand a chance. I kept telling people, if they can execute, if they can be physical, and if they can run the football, they have a shot. They forced 3 Caleb Williams interceptions. Now, again, the Bears were never out of a game this year. And that throw that Caleb Williams made is by far one of the best throws I've ever seen a quarterback make. I don't know who was supposed to be defending Cole Kmet, but what a throw. Just unbelievable. Rams would end up winning that game 20-17. So, yeah, I tried to get everybody caught up with everything that's happened and took place since the last episode I recorded of Monday Evening Quarterback. And with that being said, the first half of MEQ is done. When I get back, we will look back at how both Super Bowl teams got to where they were. And we're going to look ahead to the Super Bowl. I'm going to answer your questions. I'm going to wrap up the show and tell you how you guys can keep up with me throughout the week. This is Monday Evening Quarterback on YouTube, sponsored by Homage. I will see you guys when I get back.